So the next thing to consider is why we've such a spread here. And this could well be because we're trying to put all these measurements through the same offset. Now if we go back and look at our cross section, you can see there is a section control here and it's swapping to a channel control at this point. So it's obviously about here that we're switching to a channel control. So my guess is there should be a breakpoint put in at this point in the elevation there of 1.73. So if we go back and we insert a breakpoint at this point here, we might find we can just refine the spread that we see in the shift diagram much better. So that's the next stage, is to insert a breakpoint.
So to do that, 1.73, let's just zoom in on that area, 1.73. There's 1.78. So somewhere in here we want to add 3 rating points. So we have one where the breakpoint will be, and we need one either side of it so we can adjust the curve, if you like, or the straight line either side of that breakpoint. So let's add a rating point here. And as soon as we click here, you'll see a point appear up in here. So 1.70, I was close. And we can just move this now to get close to 1.73. If we're looking at our value up here, so 1.74, 71, 0.7, without moving the line too much, 1.72, 0.73, okay, that'll do, 1.73, just about 800 cumex. And then we want to add a point either side that we can then adjust. So let's put 2 more in there, like that. And once we've got that established, we can then click our offset 2 here. And we just want to, you see the line's gone strange because it's a 0, so let's put in the same minus 1.22. And you'll see at this point it's added a breakpoint line here, which is, if I zoom back out, goes to it just seems to default to the first rating point. But if we just toggle that up, you'll see the line will jump up and we'll keep coming up here to, we want to be on our next point up where we've established our breakpoint of 1.73. So once that's locked and loaded, this point cannot be moved. These can, but this one can't, so bear that in mind. And this line will always appear dark as an indication of the breakpoint here in the rating view. So at this point that we can now start adjusting these 2 lines separately. We probably don't want to adjust the bottom curve because we've got that fairly good. And you could move this new rating point we've inserted to line up better with our point. And our bottom one's okay because we know that's it's stage for 0 flow. And this one's pretty good. So we're fairly happy with our offset here. So we're going to leave that as is. But let's zoom in on the top end here. Let's have a look how this looks here. So that's fairly good. I mean, we could maybe move this, but it looks like we're pretty close to the center of that. And we have another one here halfway up. Let's zoom in again there. And so they're not looking too bad, but if we wanted to check that, of course, again, we need to, because we're now working on offset 2, we need to check offset 2. So we're now plotting to offset 2. If you look at that, you see it's bent the bottom one out because it's trying to apply the top offset to the lower region. So now we're plotting to offset 2, we can move around this offset here to see if we can refine these. So they're moving slightly on the shift diagram. but we're not really doing anything to this one here, which is at, it's only 0.2%. Yeah, they're very close, so really we're not achieving much at the moment. 0.2. Yeah, they're basically staying where they are. So in this case, we're not really achieving much until we have more measurements, which we may need to fit the line to better. So just remember, when you're working above and below the line, you need to change to change the plotting offset so that you're seeing above and then this one back to below. Resize that. So that's looking pretty good now. And another check, of course, is putting your historic rating gaugings on. Let's just zoom up to that top end to help with that. So you see we're quite low here, so maybe our historic gaugings are higher. We should be adjusting this higher. But we do have a measurement here indicating that maybe things have changed. So probably a case where if we can target measurements around the 2000 cubic, so big flood at this site, and just to see how well this line is at the top end. So it's a combination of obviously measurements, rule, and then playing around with our breakpoints and our offsets and which one we're plotting to, remember that. And then just always looking at our shift diagram. Okay, so when we consider the breakpoint here, of course it makes sense to be in this location, but it's not making a lot of difference because this is a big river and the offsets really aren't a lot different. But of course, if there's a rating change, a scour at the bottom end, these measurements here start to change, then it will make a difference having different offsets here. But you can see with us tweaking this, it hasn't made a lot of difference to those higher gaugings. But the other thing to consider, of course, is our slope, offset and slopes. We've been looking at offset, but the slopes too, are they within a reasonable range? If we go back to our instructions here, what are we expecting is for a parabolic triangular, which is really what they are. So anything between sort of 2 and 3 would be reasonable at this location. Looking at our slopes here, so we're 2.3 up to 2.5, so it's probably reasonable for a big river like this and the shape you can see in the cross section. So when we're finished and we're happy with how it looks in log, always remember to look at it in the arithmetic space too, so our old traditional curve, and just see how that plots as well. So we can see this bottom end here is looking fairly good, fairly smooth, and if there is maybe some kinks, it's not looking right, we can go back and maybe have it just look at how it is looking in the log. Is there something we've missed there? So both of these should look pretty good at the end, and it aligns with our shift plot and our stats here. And just checking with our historic as well. So you can see in this case here, there's a gradual shift going downwards here as the site degrades. So you know the pattern is probably reasonable. So here is the grade Dobson when we're finished. This is the actual rating now, the live rating, and just blow that up as well to see how particularly that bottom end looks here curve-wise. And you can see it looks pretty good. So don't forget to use both the zoom methods with the log and our arithmetic. So let's go to another example which shows this separation between the break above and below the breakpoint a little bit better. So here's another example. This is the Mauroa River. So you can see here it has one breakpoint as well, and two offsets over here, offset 1 and offset 2. So let's just have a look at this. How close maybe we can just refine this a little bit further as well. Bringing this breakpoint, so we're going through the gauging here. And you can see it's not going through this one here to where it's been extended, but maybe we can play around with the offset. So when doing this, again, we need to change to offset 2. Just enlarge that. And you can see it's now changed. We've got our straight line here because before, if I go back to 1 again, it was plotting to offset 1, hence giving us our curve. So if we go to offset 2, we're just working above the breakpoint. So if I go full screen, you'll see that the bottom is not looking good, but because we're trying to plot the bottom now to offset 2. So let's just go back to looking at the top end. Okay, so this one's still plotting a fair way off. What have we got here? See, pretty close. This one is 7%. So let's just have a look at this. Maybe we need to refine that step a bit too. So 0.01 might be slightly better. And let's just start playing around with our offset here. So we see our points going further away on the shift curve here. So let's bring it back till we get, so we keep watching this dot here. So it's coming back over to our 0 line. Slowly. So we're getting close now to the point where it's gone back the other way. So that is 0.2%. If I go back the other way, yeah, 0.2, same the other way. So we're splitting the difference there. We could possibly refine this bottom end here a little bit more again. Let's just zoom up on that and move that. It's better. Back out again and just blow up that top end. And you see our shift diagrams are fairly good. Let's just move that slightly more. Oops, the wrong way. Okay, that's getting pretty close now. Yep, 0 and 0.4. So that's looking much better now. And of course, if we go back to offset 1 again, we'll see the top will still have a slight bend in it, but we've refined that better now. So that's looking better. So always remember to look at it in the arithmetic view. So back into our normal curve look, if you like, and that should always look reasonable as well. And of course, remember to always check your historic. So by putting these on, you'll see all the gaugings from the past. So there has been several ratings here, and possibly the top end may have changed as well. So obviously the line's been chosen to go through these, which could be the more recent 96, 99. So maybe there's a different reason that the rating is over the way it is. Maybe it could be moved over slightly this way to go through these ratings. Previous gaugings at this top end. So always consider previous gaugings too, because the top end doesn't change all that much unless it's a major event. Another example here, this is Rukaya, so this is a braided river. So you can see here I've got a few curves plotted, and how a typical braided river would operate, as in the bottom end would move around as the gravel comes and goes, and it basically goes through a breakpoint they've established here, which is probably the upper banks, where it really there's not much change unless there's a major event. So, you can just keep plotting gaugings over the top of each other just to see how things trend. So if we plotted another one, for instance, let's go to 21, just change that color, overlay that, and you can see that. So there's another one there. So they are moving backwards and forwards in here. So another example of the importance of a breakpoint. See, there's 3 rating points around there to define it. And we can check the slope too. Yep, so the general range you can see for our exponents is probably around the parabolic to rectangular maybe, as it gets further up in the gorge at where the site is. At there, looking at slopes here, yeah, so they're in the range from 1.6 up to just over 2, 2.3. So that's all reasonable.